Got a question for you, Lexi. If poker hands were airlines,
Okay.
what would a seven deuce be?
That would be like a Spirit Airlines, maybe a Frontier.
Middle seat?
Middle seat, yeah.
How about a pair of tens?
Pair of tens is going to be like Delta Premium Economy. I think that sounds about right.
How about aces?
Aces is going to be first class Singapore or Emirates Airline.
Ooh, that's nice. We could play that all day, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm here with Sam.
Yep.
Dealer. Okay, if poker hands were rail travel. Give me a hand, Sam.
King 7 suited.
King 7 suited would be a subway, public transport. Give me another hand.
King Queen suited?
King Queen suited. Oh, that would be like European travel with reserved seats. Give me another
7
one.
deuce.
7 deuce. That is a hobo in a boxcar. That's
Yeah.
bad. Pocket Kings, that is first class on the Orient Express. Okay, Adrian, got a question for you.
Let's have it.
If poker hands were phones, what would a 7-2 be?
A string and two cans, easy.
What about
10-year-old flip phone.
what about kings or aces?
Best iPhone you got, lots of memory, take all the pictures.
In poker, there's a card we call the Allergic Queen. That's the Queen of Spades. We call her that because she's holding a flower and she's facing away from the flower as if she was allergic to it. Achoo!
Hi, y'all. I've got another poker slang term for you. I've already told you that kings are cowboys at the poker table, and queens, well, we call them ladies. That's if you win with them. If you lose with them, they sometimes have a less polite name for them. Good luck at the table. Hi, y'all. Let's talk about the most famous card in poker slang. That would be the Suicide King. It's the King of Hearts. He's known as the Suicide King because he's got a sword pointed into his head on the card. So there are other suits with a king in the deck, and they've got weapons, but none of them have a weapon touching the king. So he's famous for more than just Alice in Wonderland. At the poker table, he's known as the Suicide King. I know it sounds kind of morbid, but I didn't come up with it.
In the poker world, if you're holding a king and nine of the same suit, we call it the dog. Wonder why? Because it's the canine. Get it? The canine, the dog hand. Hi, y'all. If you're a poker player or have someone in your life who is, you may have heard of a card protector or a card guard. As you can see, I have a pretty big variety of them. These are typically small tokens or coins that poker players use to protect their cards in a poker game. If you don't protect your cards at the table, you run the risk of having your cards mucked. Mucked is when your cards are discarded and you can no longer play them. The dealer might accidentally scoop up your cards, particularly at a full table. Dealers are trained to be fast and accidents happen. Or more likely, another player is folding their cards, and as they toss them onto the table, they could hit your cards and now they're mixed up and your hand is considered mucked.
Hi, y'all. I've got another poker slang for you. When someone says they're on a heater at the poker table, it means they're on a winning streak. It's the opposite of a downturn. So we always like it at the table when we're on a heater.
Hi, y'all. At the poker table, an ace-4 is sometimes called a plane crash. It's kind of odd the way somebody came up with that name, but basically a pair of aces is sometimes referred to as American Airlines. Well, the 4 is like an ace, but it's missing a wing. So it's called a plane crash. And if you don't play it right, you might go down in flames. Hi, y'all. This poker hand is called a Kevin. You've got a king and a 7, and you just run that together, called a Kevin. Hey, y'all. Let me introduce you to a pokerism called the flat tire. If you ask someone at the poker table, what's a jack for? The answer ought to be, A flat tire, of course. Hi, y'all. Today's pokerism for you is, what do you call a pair of fives? Some people call them nickels. Some people call them snakes. Be careful you don't get bit with these. And some people call them speed limit, because back in the day, 55 was the speed limit all over the United States. So call them whatever you want, but be careful when you play with these. Hi, y'all. In poker, the 4-king hand is nicknamed the fork. You just run together 4 and king to get the word fork. This hand is off suit, so we call it forking off. Hi, y'all. In poker, sometimes we call the king-queen in your hand the royal couple. Other times, we call it the marriage. If they are unsuited, you might call them a mixed marriage. And if you lose with the king-queen, sometimes we call it a divorce. The nickname for the ace-9 in poker is called rounders. It's named after the famous poker movie, Rounders. The ace-9 is the hand in the climactic final scene. And as much as I like an ace-9, I know when to fold it. In poker, this hand is called the king crab, like you would order in a seafood restaurant. 3s are typically called crabs, and when you put a king with it, you get king crab. I don't consider this one very appetizing. Hi, y'all. Let's talk about the 2 worst cards you can get in Texas Hold'em poker. That would be a 2-7 unsuited. This is because they're the 2 lowest cards you can have that can't create a straight, because there are 5 cards between a 2 and a 7. Even if they were suited, they'd give you a low flush. And if they both paired up on the board, they'd still be poor hands. So I never play a 2-7. Hi, y'all. In poker, this is called the 49er, as in the San Francisco 49ers. Here's a pokerism for you. When a poker player says quack at the table, they're either referring to a pair of 2s that we call ducks, or they've got a queen jack, quack. Hey, y'all. So a pair of 6s in poker terms is sometimes called kicks. That comes from the song about Route 66. You get your kicks on Route 66. And here you can see I got my kicks by going all in with my pair of 6s and tripling up my stack. Hey, y'all, in poker, we call this hand jack shit, which is where you'll end up if you keep playing a jack and a 2. However, sometimes it's worth playing if you can bluff. In poker, the jack 10 is simply called the JT, which could stand for either Justin Timberlake or Justin Thomas, the golfer. In poker, the ace-jack in your hand has a lot of nicknames. Some people call it Applejacks, Hijack, Jackass, Kojak, Ajax. Call it whatever you want. When it's a suited ace-jack, I like it in my hand. In poker, the ace-2 hand is called duck hunting. You take an ace, which is nicknamed a bullet, and a 2, which is nicknamed a duck. And with the bullet and the duck, you're duck hunting. Hi, y'all. My fellow poker player Dylan recently shared a pokerism with me that's a slang term I'd never heard of. It's the 8-3, also known as the octo crab. He and his buddies call it the octo crab because the 3 is, called the crabs sometimes because of the shape, and the 8 is the octo. So put them together and you get that monster called the octo crab. I'm here in Harvey's poker room with my friend KJ, and I got a question for you, KJ. In poker slang, what's a dirty diamond?
It's gotta be deuce 3 because it's shit.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm here at 52 Pickup Social Club with Alan, and he tells me that the 9 deuce has a nickname. What do we call it?
Short bus.
The short bus. Why would you call a 9 deuce the short bus?
Well, because if you play the 9 deuce, you probably need to be riding the short bus.
You'll be riding the short bus home. In poker, a jack and 8 in your hand is sometimes called a jacket. It's just the phonetic name for a jack and 8. It sort of sounds like jacket. If you ever hear a poker player talk about ammo, they're referring to a player's chip stack. When you're out of chips, you're out of ammo. In poker, to muck your cards means to discard them or to fold them without showing anyone what they were. Mucking your cards is usually a good idea so that you don't give away your playing style easily. Hi y'all. In poker, the nuts is not this. The nuts is having the best possible hand based on the cards that you're holding and the cards that are on the board. We love it when we have the nuts.